Thank you all for joining me. My name is Marcel, and this Brenne French single malt whiskey is going to help me give you a lesson in oak influence and cask finishing. So, grab a glass, pull up a chair, and let's talk about a whiskey thing. Today's whiskey, as I had mentioned in the intro, is Brenne French single malt whiskey. And so, just a little bit about the whiskey before we start talking about the other things, the oak and the cask finishing, and basically the lesson for today, because today is a learning thing. This whiskey is made with 100% organic malted barley that is grown in the Cognac region of France. It is distilled in the Cognac region of France, and the wood and the oak that the casks are made of, that this is aged in, comes from the Limousin region of France. It is because it is made of French Limousin oak. Aged for 5 years in new charred French Limousin oak, and then finished for an additional 2 to 3 years in ex-cognac casks. And the ex-cognac casks, those gives you a little bit more of pitted fruits like apricots and peaches. Also maybe a little bit of light plum flavoring. Whatever else is going to come from the cognac casks, come from the cognac that was soaked, that had been exchanged with the wood in the cask that it was originally finished in, or the cognac was originally filled into. And it is double distilled in custom built copper alembic pot stills, and we can also go over what a alembic pot still is in another video. Pot stills, column stills, hybrid stills. We'll go over that in another video. Not only do we not have time for that in this video, but that's not what this video is about. Is there anything else that I can... Not really much else that I have to say about the whiskey itself as far as a descriptor. On that aspect, of course, we're going to be describing the aromas and flavors of the whiskey here in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about why the oak matters, why cask finishing matters, kind of what that is. So let's dive in. So the difference between American oak and European oak is French Limousin oak from the form of the European oak. Sorry, I get distracted by the aroma of this whiskey. Oh, that's wrong. I haven't even taken a sip yet, and I'm already about things. So we're just gonna let that open up and build in there, build with a little bit of the oak. Not that it hasn't been oxidized enough in this already open bottle. So the difference between American and European oak. European oak, it has a looser grain, and that looser grain allows for a much faster and more intense exchange between the oak and the spirit. It allows for a much higher transfer of tannins in the wood, and the interaction, that's the word that I was really trying to go for. The interaction between the spirit and the oak itself is a lot higher in the European oak. And European oak, it gives you more your dark dried fruits, baking spices like cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg. Has more kind of a chocolatey tobacco sort of flavors, whereas American oak, with its tighter grains, not quite as high of an interaction and not quite as intense of an exchange between the spirit and the oak. You get a lot more of vanillas, caramels, coconuts, and maybe a little bit of citrus. So that is part of the big difference between European and American oak. The other thing that separates this whiskey apart from pretty much everything else is the cognac finish on it. So pretty much what they would do is cognac, which the casks are also made of French Limousin oak. They dump the contents of said cognac into the bottles or dump it into a different cask or whatever they need to do with that cognac, but that doesn't really matter. The empty cask then has to dry for a little bit, and then it goes to the distillery, and then the distillery puts the whiskey into the cask and then ages it for a little while. Typically, cask finishing can be anywhere from just like 6 months all the way up to 3 years. And the cask finishing, what that does is, because the previous spirit or wine, whatever it is that was in, whether it be sherry, port, Madeira, there's Sauternes cask finishing, cognac cask finishing, rum cask finishes, whatever it is that was in the cask previous, had already had that exchange, that interaction, that the drawing out of the vanillins, tannins, hemicellulose, which is your wood sugars, which the charring caramelizes, which is where you get your caramels and toffees. And that sort of thing in vanillas. That's the point of charring. It also helps to filter out some of the more undesirable chemical compounds within the whiskey, so it draws out any additional like sulfury kind of notes that can arise that the copper didn't strip out during distillation. Okay, I'm gonna go wildly off topic here if I continue. So we're just going to leave that whole entire other flavor addition during decisions in the distillation process, blah, blah, blah. I could go on and on, but I'm going to go on and on in different sections in different videos. Anyway, I digress. Sorry, it's my ADHD. So the cask finishing, so you have the draw out of all your tannins, your vanillins, your hemicellulose, the caramelized wood sugars into the spirit, but then the wood also draws in to it your cognac. So you get your flavor influence from the cognac that then gets pulled out from the spirit, from the whiskey when it gets put in, and it also draws the more hemicellulose, vanillins, and lignans from the wood. But then it also imparts itself into the wood. So you could theoretically do a second fill of something else into that cask, and it would have the influence of the cognac and the whiskey, which I think is pretty cool. Science builds whiskey. There is science in this bottle. And that's part of the reason why I love whiskey. So what drew me to whiskey in the first place was just the science behind it. I had no idea before I really got into whiskey. Before I got into this, actually right before I got into this, I was sober for 7 years. But we'll talk about that later. That will be a story thing. But yeah, there's so much to whiskey, and so much, which is also why I started this channel, because not everybody likes to do that research, not everybody likes to buy the books, not everybody likes to scour Google and watch endless amounts of videos from different people and collecting all of that information in their head or in notebooks or whatever. People don't want to do that, so I am going to try to hopefully help summarize things up and hopefully help you to learn along with me. So the cask finish for 2 to 3 years in the cognac casks, you might have guessed it, makes it taste a little like cognac. And he also gives aroma influence, flavor influence. So you got your French Limousin oak, your European oak, Quercus robur. You have your ex-cognac cask. So all of that together should give you a fruity, like your dark, maybe subtle dark dried fruits, some apple, pear, a little bit of pitted fruits like apricots and peaches, a little maybe chocolatey note, a hint of tobacco. European oak, and there's also kind of like a creamy mouthfeel that you might get from just the combination of oak and ex-con and the finish. It's berries and cream, like Campino. Can you know like the Campino candies? They're hard candies. They're striped. Just imagine a wild berry, one of those, like a berry, certainly very candied. 40% ABV. We are going to add a little bit of water to it, but that is because that's what we always do. Well, that's what I always do. If you don't want to add water to your whiskey, by all means, don't add water to your whiskey. But I just do it because it helps to all of the flavor compounds, which flavor is a combination of smell and taste. The flavor compounds that are within the whiskey, some of them aren't quite alcohol soluble. Some of them get trapped in the oils that are within the whiskey. They're volatile compounds that get stirred up and up to the top. Odd choice of sound effect, but I need some water. Been talking too much. It's always my problem though. Talk too much. I like stewed peaches, ripe apricot, ripe dried apricot. You know, like you find in a grocery store, just a bag of dried apricot, kind of sticky, syrupy. Smells kind of like has a sweet icing, like a icing covered pastry, kind of like maybe. I don't really know many French pastries. I almost said a Danish, but it's because that's one of my favorite pastries. Smells like a berry Danish. Not really much for apple, as far as not unlike. I believe apple is amyl acetate. I know ethyl acetate, because I'm pretty sure ethyl acetate is what gives fruit their distinctive aromas. So gentle on the nose, much like a lot of 40% whiskeys. It's softer on the nose, definitely a lot softer on the nose. There are some higher proof stuff and like closer to cask strength stuff that is a little more gentle on the nose. It doesn't burn like you would think that a high alcohol content, high ethanol content spirit would be. Like the Dione Northern Overproof blend is sitting at 51% alcohol by volume, and it noses like it's a little more like 43, maybe 46%. So it's a little bit more gentle on the nose, and I'll go over this maybe next time. Who knows? But this will definitely go over that one with you. Super candied, super sweet, creamy, light pastry. So wonderful on the nose. This is so approachable and lovely. It can be used. It's great as a digestif. It's good for, like, let's say there's somebody who doesn't particularly like whiskey, but they only ever tried a smoky scotch, or they only ever tried a budget bourbon, or they haven't really done much exploration. This perfect for them. Somebody who likes something a little bit sweeter. Perfect for them. Like I could sit here in the nose all day. Has a very thick, oily mouthfeel. Sweet. It's like sort of got a berries and cream with a little, maybe more of a crumble. like a berry crumble or or apricot berry crumble toasted on the top, like maybe some toasted caramel on the top of it, with a finish of tinned peaches. Yeah, it's got a finish of tinned peaches. I showed this to a cousin of mine a couple weekends ago. Went over, made a trip out to the city there, and I gave it to him, and we were talking about it, and talking about the flavors and what it smells like, what it tastes like, and everything. And when he said Minnesopway, that's exactly it. That's if you don't know what Minnesopway is, that is wildly unfortunate. Go find yourself a Cree. Go get yourself a Cree friend. They'll get you some Minnesopway. I mean, anyway. Very approachable, very lovely. Great for an after dinner drink. Pair well with a bowl of vanilla ice cream. Hell, I would almost pour this if it wasn't so thin. I would pour it into the ice cream, kind of like I would a PX sherry, like the Alvier de Añada Pedro Mene sherry. I would pour that onto some ice cream for sure. That is just such a lovely whiskey. Yeah, and there's for your color. Oh, water! I almost said goodbye. Oh, no, we're just gonna take. It's already 40%. Not gonna use much water. That's about enough of that. Definitely, it softens that berry crumble. Definitely softens the sweet, the fruitiness, but it brings out your baking spices, so it smells like cinnamon and nutmeg. Maybe cinnamon sugar toast. Bless me. More cinnamon, more pastry, less fruity, with a little bit of water added to it. And like I have said before, it is perfectly fine to put water in your whiskey. Your 40% whiskey is 60% water anyway. So, what's the harm in putting a little bit more water in? And also, like, your master blenders and your master distillers and people in the industry, when they're making sure that that the new make is good, when they have to check to see how a cask is doing, they take a dip. They'll proof it down to 20%, because in a cask it ranges 55 to 65% ABV, somewhere around in there, I think. Maybe a little bit lower, but even over time, there's not going to be enough alcohol loss. There's not going to be enough drop in percentage for them to just drink straight from the cask. So they water it down to about 20%, especially if it's a bigger distillery and they're going to be nosing and tasting whiskey all day. A higher ABV, that's going to burn your olfactory senses. That's going to completely ruin them. And so by the end of the day, they're going to be numb, and you're not going to be able to pick up on all of the nuances, all of your subtle smells and aromas that you are looking for in the whiskey as you are making it and as you're checking on how it's maturing. So the professionals put water in their whiskey, which is why I do. Anyway, nope. Yep, on the mouth, On the palate, it also just brings up the spice level, brings down the fruit, kind of washes out the fruits. Finish is much shorter with water, obviously, because it's already 40%. You're diluting it a little bit more, but it's not like I'm taking this whole entire shot glass and dumping it into it. Don't do that. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. And now it's too much, but you get what I mean. You're only adding little bits of water. That's why you get yourself a pipette. Put little bits of water, and like if you're taking a high proof, you can proof it down to something that's more comfortable for you. It also opens it up, bringing new aromas, additional aromas, or taking a whole bunch away. But that's part of whiskey, is the exploration, the understanding of how much to use. And that water is good. Anyway, I think that's enough for this video, as we're going to just start getting off topic because I don't have anything else to say about this. So, again, thank you for joining me. If you enjoy my content, if you like, or if you want to, like and subscribe. Actually, please like and subscribe. Share this with your friends. Tell them all about me. Yeah, it'll be a good time for everybody if we do that. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And please drink responsibly. Don't drink underage. Nobody needs a drunk, young, angry hooligan, or a potentially rather randy hooligan. We don't need that.
Bye-bye.